He's faster than a bullet, stronger than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in one bound. We've all heard the slogan, we've heard it 1,000 times. But strip away the cape, the icon, the spectacle, what do we have left? Today's world is no less messed up, no less unpredictable, and no less broken as ours. You might find it surprising to see a character such as Superman out of place. Too sunny, too perfect, too good. But I don't think we've outgrown Superman. I think we merely forgot why we ever needed him in the first place. See, I never really understood Superman. I was one of those kids who liked the grittier heroes, the tough ones, the ones that tussled and died. And I'm still that way. But growing up, as life pounded at the door a little harder, something changed. I saw Superman isn't fascinating because he's immortal. He's fascinating because he chooses to care over and over and over again, even when it hurts. And that's what the latest Superman film does right. James Gunn didn't try to reboot Superman as darker, grittier, or more realistic. He just reminded us of what he was already, and what we could be if we chose to live with the same kind of hope. Today, we're unpacking James Gunn's Superman and asking, what does this version of the Man of Steel say about us? What kind of hero does our world need right now? And why, after all these years, Superman still matters? Let's unpack this. Superman is more than the sum of his superhero parts. He's an archetype, a modern myth cobbled together out of the same stuff as Hercules, Gilgamesh, and Moses. He's the star child, grounded, hidden away, and destined to be greater. Carl Jung once said that myths were the collective unconscious's dreams, tales we retell over and over again because we require them. And in a certain sense, Superman is more than a character. He's a symbol of something deeper, where the divine and the human meet. He's what power looks like when it chooses humility, when power is channeled to compassion. James Gunn is drawn to this tension, not by deconstructing Superman, but by gently redefining him. This isn't a god wrestling with being above us. This is a man trying to figure out how to stay good in a world that keeps asking him to take sides. And that's important, because in 2025, we don't need another Messiah. We need someone who's trying, fumbly, vulnerably, to stay kind in a world that tells him otherwise. He's not the all-American Boy Scout. He's quiet, he trips, he doubts, but he never gives up on being good, not because he thinks he's better, but because he knows he could be, and refuses to be anything other than his best self. That choice, over and over, is what defines him as Superman, because the S doesn't stand for strength, it stands for hope. Superman has always struggled with being a child of two worlds. He doesn't belong to Earth by blood, and he doesn't belong to Krypton by memory. He's suspended in between, too strange to be normal, too human to be divine. Gunn's Superman leads into this quite nicely. He's awkward, sensitive, touchy about criticism, and even has relationship issues. It really makes you forget that he's the same person who can fight building-sized monsters without trouble. Superman saves the world not because it owes him something. He saves it because he gets it. In all its brokenness, in all its fear, in all its fragility, that it is worth it, and that's beautiful. He's not trying to be better than mankind. He's not even trying to be. He's trying to love a world that does not always love him back. And that's what makes this Superman strong. Not his powers to lift buildings or deflect bullets, but his choice to carry the weight of his actions and strive to be the best person he can be. Modern media likes to deconstruct the idea of Superman. Wouldn't he turn corrupt? Wouldn't power make him monstrous? Gunn's Superman offers another question. What if the most realistic option isn't corruption, but a deliberate choice to be better? This Superman doesn't take moral certainty. He has conviction in his heart, but he's not infallible here. He has doubts and insecurities. But what makes him Superman is that he's flawed. It's his compass, the thing that always brings him back to kindness. Superman acts because he believes in the good within everyone, even when nobody's looking. He fights for the possibility that the world can be greater than it is now. And in 2025, that's not naive, that's revolutionary. I want to look at two other movies that I watched recently as I was thinking about the character, Man of Steel and Brightburn. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel offers a version of Superman steeped in existentialism, identity crisis, and moral ambiguity. Rather than the confident beacon of hope we're used to, we meet a Superman who is isolated, uncertain, and visibly burdened by the expectations of being something greater. Psychologically, this Clark is raised in fear. His adoptive father, Jonathan Kent, urges him to conceal his powers, even at the cost of lives, out of fear that the world won't accept him. This instills a deep-rooted conflict in Clark, the desire to help versus the fear of exposure. We see this play out vividly in the scene where Clark saves a school bus as a child, only to be told he should have let people die to protect his secret. That kind of moral confusion from a formative figure leads to a Clark who is both powerful and emotionally repressed. When he finally dons the cape, it's not out of purpose, it's out of necessity. He doesn't become Superman because he believes in hope, but because General Zod forces him into the role. His first major act as Superman is killing Zod, not because he wants to, but because he sees no other way. That moment, while emotionally intense, is a hard break from traditional Superman morality. It says, this Superman is still learning, but also reveals a version of the character whose psychology is steeped more in survival and reluctant responsibility than aspirational heroism. Thematically, Man of Steel is a Superman story viewed through the lens of burden and sacrifice. He's not yet a symbol, he's a question mark. What is the cost of power? What happens when godlike ability is paired with emotional instability? The film suggests that Superman is someone who can be a hero, but first has to survive being an alien in a world that may never love him back. I watched this movie because I hadn't seen it, but this version of Superman was the most recent one before James Gunn's version. When we thought about the character, we pictured him, a stoic, brooding, godlike figure with messiah overtones. I had mixed feelings about this incarnation because I felt like he wasn't the image of Superman in my mind. I learned to love Superman because of how relatable he is. He's a man trying to do his best with the responsibility he's been given. He would never willingly put distance between himself and others because of his differences. Superman is the kind of person who'd want to hang out with anyone because he values life and he loves people no matter what their background is. My other issue with this movie is that it tries to add more grittiness to a character that normally isn't associated with it. This movie was written by Christopher Nolan, who made the Dark Knight trilogy. That grittiness works well with Batman, but it hurts when it's used with Superman. At the end of the day, I don't think this is a bad movie. It would be fine as a superhero movie about anybody else, but I don't think it's a good Superman movie. Brightburn is what happens when Superman's story goes terribly wrong. It's a dark mirror, an alternate universe that asks a chilling question. What if Clark Kent never developed empathy? Brandon Breyer is, for all intents and purposes, an evil Superman. Raised in a loving environment, he still turns towards violence and domination. The twist here is that it's not nurture that defines him, it's nature. His alien origin manifests not as wonder or strength, but as cold superiority and entitlement. Psychologically, Brandon reflects a child who experiences rejection and lashes out with extreme force. He starts out socially awkward and bullied, much like Clark in traditional versions, but instead of finding strength and compassion, he finds pleasure and control. The shift is subtle at first. His voice deepens, his mannerisms become mechanical, and he begins to test his power on animals and eventually people. A pivotal moment is when Brandon kills his own mother. It's the ultimate rejection of the Kent-style moral center. He doesn't just ignore the lessons of love, he eradicates them. He isn't confused or burdened like Man of Steel's Clark. He's resolute, predatory, and chillingly intelligent. Thematically, Brightburn deconstructs Superman by stripping away the idealism and revealing the horror of unchecked power. What makes Superman heroic isn't his strength, it's his soul. Take that away and you have Brandon Breyer, a god with no empathy. In a way, Brightburn isn't just a horror movie, it's a warning. Superman without compassion is not just dangerous, he's monstrous. So I'm pretty familiar with the concept of an evil Superman. There's plenty of media that covers the concept because it's a popular thought experiment. I like this movie because it was a good representation of that concept. The parents are good people who genuinely want to raise Brandon to be a good person, but are not equipped to handle someone with godlike powers going through this struggle. I saw Brandon's eventual descent as a tragedy because of how much ambiguity there was surrounding it. Was he brainwashed? Was he slowly corrupted by his mother enabling him? Was he secretly evil all along? The film leaves things unclear for us to make our own conclusions. In Kill Bill Volume 2, Bill delivers a monologue that has become one of the most incisive pop culture dissections of Superman's identity. He says,
I'm quite keen on comic books, especially the ones about superheroes. I find the whole mythology surrounding superheroes fascinating. Take my favorite superhero, Superman. Not a great comic book, not particularly well drawn. But the mythology. The mythology is not only great, it's unique.
How long does this shit take to go into effect?
About 2 minutes. Just long enough for me to finish my point. Now, a staple of the superhero mythology is there's the superhero and there's the alter ego. Batman is actually Bruce Wayne. Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. When that character wakes up in the morning, he's Peter Parker. He has to put on a costume to become Spider-Man. And it is in that characteristic Superman stands alone. Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When Superman wakes up in the morning, he's Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent. His outfit with the big red S. That's the blanket he was wrapped in as a baby when the Kents found him. Those are his clothes. What Kent wears, the glasses, the business suit, that's the costume. That's the costume Superman wears to blend in with us. Clark Kent is how Superman views us. And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak. He's unsure of himself. He's a coward. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
it's a bold reading, and one that speaks directly to the psychological core of Superman. But is it accurate? Let's break it down. Bill's interpretation sees Superman as innately divine, a being so far removed from humanity that his human persona is a mask of condescension. In this reading, Clark Kent isn't just an alias, it's satire. This aligns more closely with Brightburn, or even the early Golden Age Superman, where his power was unmatched and his demeanor could be mocking. But the more widely embraced modern take sees it differently. Especially in the 2025 Superman film, Clark Kent is not a mask. He's the anchor. He represents Kal-El's choice to be human, to be compassionate, to belong. Unlike what Bill suggests, Clark isn't a coward. He's humble. He's not weak, he's restrained. And that restraint is a form of strength. In Man of Steel, we see Clark struggle with this duality. He's an alien first, desperately searching for a human identity. In Brightburn, the dichotomy collapses entirely. Brandon has no human side to speak of. But in Superman, Clark Kent isn't a disguise. He's a daily act of hope. He's Superman, choosing to walk among us not as a god, but as one of us. Psychologically, the identity split reveals what each version of Superman values most. For Brandon, it's domination. For Snyder's Clark, it's burden responsibility. For 2025 Superman, it's empathy and connection. Clark Kent is not a costume. It's the part he chooses to protect the most. In this way, Kill Bill presents a compelling critique, but the 2025 film offers a rebuttal. Superman isn't great because he's powerful. He's great because in all his power, he still chooses to be Clark Kent. Every version is left with its own Superman. He might have a different suit, but at the center, he's always a reflection, not of who we are, but of who we might be. In James Gunn's version, we aren't merely being asked to believe in Superman. We're asked to believe in what he believes in: kindness, forgiveness, restraint, the revolutionary act of being good, not for reward, but because someone has to set an example. This Superman doesn't lecture. He doesn't save you so that you'll thank him. He doesn't look down from above. He walks with us, because that's what real strength really is. At a time when everything appears to be shattered, when people are weary, angry, disillusioned, Superman seems to remind us that mercy is a choice, and that practicing that choice, especially when it's hard, isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing that we can do. This isn't about perfection. It's about doing your best, and maybe that's why we still need Superman.